if my goal is here, but my effort is here, well, there's a disconnect. We'll get spiritual here if that's okay with you. I used to be so angry, bro. Like, you can ask anybody,
Wow.
like, what are your thought processes? What are your habits? What are what are all the things that you're doing, thinking, saying that is keeping you where you are? There'll be times in your speed walking journey when you realize that speed walking is a lot like life. Bro, like, the weight fell off, but even more than that, it literally changed my personality. I'm as human being is out there. It's like, bro, if I'm out there doing it, you can too.
Alvey Daniel Thompson Jr.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Dude, that's
Thompson.
Thompson. Dude, bro, that hell of a name, dude.
I appreciate that.
Hell of a name. And we met both at the Czech Institute. And honestly, bro, I fell in love with your vibe. And as well as I kind of like kept looking you up, you have this very deep understanding of humans needing to be a dynamic, holistic collective, and I resonate with that completely. And that's probably why you actually went to the Czech Institute, and that's probably why I also went to the Czech Institute. And your beliefs in physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health is everything that encompasses who I am and what I'm trying to do with this podcast and my brand. And it looks like you're on the same mission. So I was like, dude, this is another ally in the world, and I'm like, I got to bring you on, and we got to chop it up on these topics.
Absolutely.
One thing that you did have that I never even thought of or put into it was protection. You added that into your kind of like your manifesto. Could you explain that to the audience beyond like the self-development and all these mental, emotional aspects of ourselves, the protection aspect? Can you explain that?
Absolutely. So what I talk about is how important it is to protect what is sacred. And to me, protection means being able to honor and defend what is most important to us as individuals and as a collective as well. So for me, I really got into this mode where not only do I want to help create in myself and other people just great, robust health, relationships, all of that, but to also like protect it, to like have these sense of values, to be able to be in a position to hold what's dear to us close and make sure that we defend it whenever we need to defend it in those situations.
Now, is that relative for men?
I think so. I believe so. I mean, a lot of my messaging, the stuff that I talk to now, is geared towards men. And I really do feel like as men, we are and have been since as long as the history I've seen to be the protectors. And, back in the day, that used to see more in the light of being able to, physically fight if we had to, defend the tribe, go to war, things of that nature. And, now it takes more of the form of, being able to have the resources necessary to, provide a good, healthy life for those that you love and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think that, as the lines get blurred between men and women, some in a good way, I think, some have been very toxic, but I do think women also bear some responsibility in the protection of their femininity, as well as men bear that protection in their masculinity. Have you been, what is your take on like the current events of like, men being feminized and women being masculinized? Because it seems like, we have our set roles, but it's getting kind of mixed up and a little weird.
No, absolutely. I think it's a great question. And for me, honestly, I think a lot of the world, how we see it today, because at the end of the day, your own perception is what creates your reality, right? So in the way that I see the world right now, and I think many other people, based off of our discussions and discussions I've had with other people, we can see that it's just not working, right? It doesn't seem to be optimal where it could be. And I do think a lot of that does have to do with just the dynamics between men, women, masculinity, femininity, gender roles, who should be doing this, who should be doing that, how is each person supposed to show up at home, in the workplace, just overall in society. And I do think we're at a point right now where, because there's not the proper balance of it, we're seeing how ineffectively it's showing up in our world today.
With the men you work with, what has been their biggest issue?
Yeah. So for most of them, these are men who are successful by the status quo in society. Here's what I mean by that. A lot of us growing up, and for my clients as well, as a man, was basically taught that success equals having a lot of money in your bank account, or it means having a certain job title, climbing the corporate ladder, a certain level of that makes success. And the problem that a lot of my clients have, the main problems, is that they don't have what I would call a well-rounded definition of success. And for me, I call it the new success. And it's being great at your career and your finances and having great health and having great relationships. So a majority of my clients, they're falling short in their own life by their own estimation in their health, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, or with their relationships, where maybe they don't have a great relationship with themselves, first and foremost. They don't have a great relationship maybe with their significant other, or maybe with their kids or their coworkers, or, whoever it might be. So my clients come because they're looking for fulfillment, and it's usually in the way of bettering their health or bettering their relationships and still making all the money that they want to make, being badass at work, doing all the things as well.
And I'm assuming, since these guys are already coming to you, they already have like an opening to accept that, hey, like I'm failing in these other parts. Have you ever tried to maybe just have a conversation with someone who's maybe closed-minded? I would assume maybe some people that wouldn't come to you are just like, nah, I'm killing it, bro. Like, I got money in the bank, I got a little yacht, whatever, I got a nice big house. Have you found that to be true, or people are openly able to admit that, hey, you know what, I am suffering in these other areas, but, hey, at least I'm successful in the status quo? Is that something you find it hard for people to admit to?
It's a great question. And speaking from my experience and the types of clients I've had, but also just conversations, because I'm really fortunate that I get, I have a lot of great people in my network. I get invited to different types of events or social gatherings, hangouts and whatnot. And because, my clients are really cool, my friends are really cool, they hang out with other cool people. So I have a lot of conversations with a lot of these men who are financially and career successful, right? And it's interesting. I think one of my, we want to call it a superpower, one of my gifts is being able to have an open, honest, and safe conversation with somebody. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but like, bro, I'll meet someone who is literally a complete stranger, and we just get to talking about whatever it is. And because I genuinely am curious about like how their life is, how do they feel that their life is, how they make decisions, what fulfills them, things of that nature, it has them open up, because oftentimes people aren't asking them questions in that way. So I've had a lot of these guys who, bro, they make a lot of money. They have, a really high role in their company, or they own the company. And a lot of that quote unquote success also comes with a lot of stress. And what I found is a lot of these guys, they do find that their health or their relationships just aren't where they want it to be. And for the most part, they've done that, or it's happened that way because they've made their work or their career their priority. And it's not to make it wrong or bad, but what they found is that they actually sacrificed these other aspects of their life in order to be, really good at what they're doing. But yeah, to answer your question, it's like majority of guys, at least that I get into conversations with, if there is something going on and the conversation's going right, they feel safe to talk about it, they've been open to have the conversation.
That's good. That's good. Because I would find it hard to believe that like successful men will point out their flaws, especially when they're killing it in business and in, financial wealth. I was just curious about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Quick question as well on this topic, because I am one of those type of people who, like, how I alluded to earlier, I want to succeed in all these things. And lucky for me, I started when I was very young. I have no idea where I even got this fucking idea from. When I was literally, bro, like I must have been 11 or 14, where I'm like, dude, I'm gonna kill it in relationships, money, I'm gonna be good with people. I have no fucking clue where that hit me from, but it hit me when I was very young. So I kind of had a long-term kind of like planning my life out into this thing. Now, this is where the challenge came for me and still comes to this day where, dude, I'm working, I'm studying, I'm like spending time with family. I'm trying to get to bed on time, man. I'm sharing on social media. I'm hanging out with friends. I'm cooking my meals because, I got to cook them healthy. I took my little pet to the vet the other day. I got to water my plants. I actually had to break up with the girl this year because, it was consuming a lot of my time and she needed more attention than I could give her. And I had to end that relationship. So, man, I'm like and I want to succeed in all these things, but I have limited amount of energy and time, and I've noticed that about myself. How do you guide people like myself who are struggling to actually get it all while understanding, because this was my biggest realization this year, understanding, hey, I have a limited amount of energy, I have a limited amount of time, I have to utilize those as best as I can to succeed.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. And I had two thoughts on it. One that's been the thought that I've really been working with, say, the last 4 or 5 years. And then I have my evolved thought on it in terms of where I see it now and where it would need to go. So I'll start with how I've been seeing it and then kind of get into what it's evolved to.
Cool.
So like when I look at my own life, it's like, when you're a high achiever in the same way that I'm a high achiever, but we look at being a high achiever in all aspects, all buckets of life. And I think what happens with that type of mindset, it's that, one, we have to be very clear on like, what's the most important thing? And how do I make the most important thing the most important thing? And what that means to me, it's like, whatever the priority is in that season of my life, that's where I'm focusing more energy and time to. Now, mind you, it took years for me to get in the right flow where certain things that used to be really tough are really easy. It's like riding a bike. For instance, that's like cooking my food now for myself. You know what I'm saying? That's making sure that I, get to bed, drink water, like control the controllables. That's just me. But then it had to advance to like, all right, what's the most important thing that involves other people as well? And how do I make sure I create the time to make that specific or couple of things happen? I had a mentor, shout out to Michael DeSanti, amazing man. And something that he shared with me that stayed with me forever is that you can do everything, just not at the same time. And he talked about how as men, we have seasons in our life. I resonate with that because I've been an athlete from the time I was 6 years old until I graduated college and finished playing football. It was one of those things where you have a season where you got the off season, right? And in the off season, that's when you're training a certain way. That's when you're eating a certain way. And then you do all of that until you get to like summer camp, right? Which is like the preseason. And then you got your in season, right? And the focus had to be different during each season. And that's how I would look at people's lives. So if I had a client or somebody I was working with who said, hey, the most important thing for me right now is to lose 20 pounds. Of course, we would go deeper and be like, hey, why will your life be better when you're 20 pounds lighter? Is there ways that you're thinking about yourself that is bad right now, but once you're 20 pounds lighter, you're going to think it's good? So just these ways to get deeper within like the surface. But the whole idea would be to find out like, all right, what's the big why? What's the reason why you need to lose that 20 pounds? Is that really the most important thing right now? And if it is, then let's create the time for that. And then it's looking at that person's life. What are you willing to not do in order for you to do these things? And how do you do it in a way that just takes you to that major goal or whatever that stepping stone is that a person has to get to? So for me, when I heard everything you said, just in terms of, hey, wanted to get to bed, wanted to eat right, wanted to, put the right time into everything that's important, do the things you need to do, but there's only 24 hours in a day. So it's like, how do we make that time? And the first thing I say is like, bro, what's the number one thing? What's the biggest? And then looking at your day to day, and can you look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm actually putting the requisite amount of time that it would take to get that actual result.
Yeah.
Because all that could be said real simply as I always say to anybody, and I tell myself this all the time. If my goal is here, but my effort is here, well, there's a disconnect. They're not the same. So obviously
Yeah.
I'm not going to be getting what I want. So I
Yeah.
literally have two choices. I can either bring my effort up to match the goal, or if I want to keep my effort down here, I got to be willing to bring the goal down here. And,
Okay.
and that's where just keeping it real with ourselves is so important. Either, hey, you're not getting the results you want. All right, change your effort, go get it, or bring that result that you think you want down because you're not actually putting in the time, energy, focus, and attention to actually have it happen. So do you really even want that thing?
Wow, that is awesome. Listen up, guys. That's some good shit right there. That's good self-awareness. But you see, my problem was too, like I would have, all these aspects of my life that I'm trying to succeed at.
Mm-hmm.
And then just like how you said, there was a disconnect from what I could do in all these different things. And I was fucking failing at every fucking single one. And you feel like trash, dude. Like I'm not doing good in my career. I'm not putting up as much as I need to on social media. My relationship's suffering. And it could eat you up, man. And you're like, dude, but I'm putting in all this effort and all this work. But that disconnect is where like I lived in for a while. Luckily, I've been changing things up for myself lately. So I've been, hitting a lot better. But it can be very tough, man.
Oh, 100%. No, 100%. I've been there with you too, man. And I appreciate you being open and vulnerable and able to talk about it, because that's what I think so much of us men really feed off of, is just seeing that like we're not by ourselves in a lot of the things that we're experiencing. It's like so many other people just like us who are high achievers, want to do the right thing, or about having great values. We could fall short at times, but I would say the status quo or the collective consciousness kind of tells us like, hey, don't share what you're going through. If you're losing, like, don't say nothing, keep it quiet. like in reality, we used to always have other great men around us that could pick us up, that could give us wise counsel, right? That could do things to ensure that if we were going to the wrong path, they could really easily guide us towards the right way. So the first way, now that's just how I've been looking at it. So
okay,
right. So here's the evolve thing.
Let's do it.
Right. So I think one of the biggest traps that we live in right now is that we try to do all of these things alone. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, like, bro, if you're trying to put all your time into cooking, you're putting all your time into social media management or social media content, you're putting all of your time into like going to like get your food and to like build out your business, to do this and to do that. It's too hard to do as a one-man show. Yeah. And I look at this from a business perspective, and I also look at it from just a family perspective. I think one of the biggest traps we're all falling into is just the nuclear family. Like, I know you don't have a significant other right now, but, the kind of whole idea is like, hey, let me, find my spouse. We're going to get married. We're going to have X amount of kids. We're going to have this one house and, this car and white picket fence and all these things. And they're cool. They're great. Don't get me wrong. But the problem is it's so hard for one family to get all of those things and actually have the time to be present with family. So like for me, my wife and I, we know that we want to have kids soon, and God willing, we'll have some by next year. And it's one of these things where I'm big on self-awareness. I really look at how do I want my life to be and how am I showing up now to make it happen. And I'm like, for my family, so my future kids, my wife, to live the life that I want them to live, to make that amount of money, I would probably need to work 65, 70 hours a week consistently, and to have like a full schedule and all the clients and all the things and build the businesses and all of that. And it would be great. But then what happens if I'm doing that and now I don't have the hours to be at my kids', baseball game, not be able to go to the recital, or just not be able to hang out with them in the evening, or have the energy to hang out with them in the evening and run around and tell stories and do all those types of things if I'm completely sucked into just my work. So to me, I think that's where the answer is community.
Uh,
And that's what we used to have as tribal beings. We're like, hey, all
uh-huh.
the men were going to go out and go hunt and try to find the food. And then the women would be back and they might be, they might be gathering berries, or they might be doing stuff, within the village or whatever it was. But like the men had the men's back, the women had the women's back, the men had the women's back, the women had the men's back. And everyone was participating in such a way that it allowed the whole group to thrive. But now we're living in a world where I'm trying to, make a certain amount of money so that I can afford the mortgage. I could afford the car. I could afford to get, some grass-fed ribeye for, $29.99 a pound, or I'm trying to do this, do that, right? So it requires me as one person or one family to have to go out and get resources to essentially buy resources. Where imagine how much different that looks when people are in community, and now me and 3 other families, we just buy a cow and we share a cow together. And now instead of our meat on average costing, say, $15 a pound, now it's like $5 a pound, and you're getting all the best cuts. You're using it from nose to tail, all of that. But that's just on the food side.
Yeah.
Imagine if you're able to say, instead of you having to every single day go get your food and cook and all of that, spend all that time cooking, what if families rotated on which family was cooking and having people over that day? Well, if I'm just cooking more food for more people, but it's one time a day, wow, I'm going to save so much time overall. And it actually brings us together, which I think people want more than anything nowadays, is to be around people that they trust, that have their back, that have great values, that stand for something, that, stand for things that are similar to me, where that's just so far from the norm. I don't know what your house setup is, but bro, being in Miami, the last 2 places I lived before my house now, big, beautiful high-rise buildings. And these buildings would have like 50 floors and like, I don't know, 20 people on each floor. You're talking about like damn near 1,000 people in every building.
Yeah.
And bro, I would literally know maybe 5, 6 people in the building.
Right.
And none of them were like my people where like we're sharing meals and breaking bread consistently. Yet we have all that proximity. We're all right there in the same spot. So it's like we're so close, but we're still so disconnected. Where to me, it's like so much of my energy, my life going forward, whether it's business, whether it's, personal life, it's relationships, it's health, all of this, it's really moving towards this community model so that people aren't feeling the burden like you feel of trying to do everything, but you can't because you're one man. You can only be in so many places at so many times, doing so many things at, so much time. Whereas in community, you would still be able to have the results that you're looking to get, like a great meal, but you don't necessarily have to cook that great meal every single day.
Dude, fucking love this. You're speaking my language, bro. I've been thinking about this for years too. Like, I always find it difficult because, again, like I said, when I was young, I started to kind of like see the future, and I was thinking, man, dude, it's a lot of work for a wife to like cook and clean, and then it's a lot of work for the man to go out and get, resources and also be there for his family. And I actually have a Muslim friend. He's an amazing guy, and he lives with his mother, his father, his 3 brothers. Their wives moved in. So he's like chilling, and like he works a lot. The brothers help each other. They live together in the same house. They're in business together. Like, and it's like family time, business time, cooking time. It's just like a fucking unit. And here I am in my 2-bedroom alone.
Yeah, I feel you.
So looking at the future, I think of it the exact same way. And one thing I love about America specifically is we have the freedom to create any reality we fucking want. So if me and you wanted to live in a community, it'd be up to us to just make sure we get the land, set up the proper buildings, set up our proper systems, and then boom.
Absolutely.
And it's 100% possible.
100%.
Do you think we'll be able to change everybody's minds of individualism?
No, absolutely not. But I mean, I'm not here to change everyone's mind at the end of the day. And it's funny because, when I first got into this work of, just call it helping people be their best self, right? I really had this pie in the sky idea of like, hey, I want to help everyone.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like in my heart, like all I'm looking to be is like a devout servant. But I realized I can only serve those who want to be served. And not everyone wants it. And,
Right.
I've had if you know my story, or for those that do know my story, I learned that the hard way because, I used to, before my mom passed away, I used to try to force her to do everything what I would call the right way, my way, essentially then.
Yeah.
And the problem was back then in 2015 and before, I didn't have the skill set to truly meet people where they're at. And I had all this knowledge in, physical health and nutrition and exercise and, weight training and corrective exercise and all this great stuff. But I never had the skill set then to really meet my mom where she was at. But once she passed away, I mean, one of my biggest life lessons was like, hey, I can't help anyone who doesn't want my help. And I realized not everyone wants my help. And I think that's fine. That's something I had to have a lot of peace with. And now my energy really is just focused on helping those who want to be helped.
That's beautiful. That was actually one topic I did want to hit. You've mentioned in the past that, you weren't meeting her where she was at. And I've had this conversation a lot on my podcast here where, especially as you're a high achiever and I'm very idealistic. Like I love the idea of like, hey, let's all strive. What if we were all at our best?
Yeah.
And then you kind of impose that on other people. You're just like, hey, bro, like you're not at your best. You're not meeting my standards. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And it took me a long time to also like accept like, yo, like, hold up. They're a complex human being with their own perspective on life, have emotional traumas, whatever it is, they have a whole lifetime of unpacking. Like, let me meet them where they're at, see where they are open, and try to serve them in the places that they're ready for, right?
Amen.
How did that help you, like, after discovering that with your mother's relationship, how did that mold future relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So number one, it had me really create boundaries simply around the types of relationships that I wanted to have. And, I'm very blessed that I've had amazing friendships throughout my life. Like I have friends right now who are my friends since I was 5 years old, which is incredible. Wow. I literally saw one today. We got a workout together. I got a little community workout going on.
Hell yeah.
But it's one of these things where it's like, I just had to realize that I too have just certain standards just in terms of the types of people that I want to be around and what I'm willing to tolerate. And, I have enough self-awareness just to know that like, oh, okay, I could be resentful if someone wasn't doing something that I quote unquote like wanted them to do or thought they should be doing.
Yeah.
And what it's come down to now, it's like, if someone's in my circle and it's someone that I spend time with, I'm simply doing my best to love that person for who they are. And I'm here to help them when they express that they're ready for some help. And that also looks like, because I love these people, if something's going like kind of haywire or something just doesn't look right or something's off or they just say they just gained a bunch of weight, I let them know that I noticed that from just a place of perspective, not to judge it good or bad, but just as an observation. And I check in and I just say like, yo, is everything okay? Like, what's up? Because the people that I hang around, they know the type of work that I'm into. They know what I'm about, just having conversations and all of that. So basically that's me like opening the door saying like, hey, I'm here to help, or I'm here to be an ear, hold space. And a lot of them do take me up on that. And then we start to just unpack it. And then from there, I just offer like, hey, I can help you with this. Is this something you want help with? And if it's a yes, then we get to it. And if it's a no, I just say, all right, no problem. Like, I'm here if you change your mind or if you need me.
Woo! That's nice, man.
I appreciate it.
I'm gonna try to incorporate that. That I've always had like confrontation is something I always avoided, and I've been getting way better at it. It's actually been a big evolution of mine to like.
That's
be able to speak. You know, in the Czech Institute, we talk about, you know, like different zones and different chakras.
Right.
And sometimes where I can literally feel my throat just close. Like I can't, for a long time, I've always had a hard time to speak my mind and say something. Lately, though, I've been really working on it and being able to like just to literally like open that up and speak. So like I would love to incorporate that. That's something I've never even thought of, giving someone an observation openly and giving them a chance for some support in a small way, maybe just to get the ball a little bit rolling for their life, you know?
No, for sure. I mean, honestly, some people just don't even notice that something like that's going on. Like they won't even realize that it's happened until it's just like severe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think from a place of love, and you know, as long as it's always coming from that place, like don't get me wrong, I've done it many a times in the past where it was not coming from a place of love. It was just me like being mad or hate or whatever, right? So but I think as long as it comes from a place of love, and like I could look at myself in the mirror after that conversation and be like, hey, I know I went about that in a way that's like in integrity with who I am, then I'm fine with it. Because the other person could get mad and I have no control over that. Or they could love it and I have no control over that. So either way, just trying to focus what I can.
Love it. Let's get back in a little more like structured stuff here. So I was wondering, you know, some people have, you know, their whole lives fucked up, potentially. You know, there's many ways for that to happen today with as much distraction and noise as there is in general. Is there a specific aspect in like our holistic wheel of life where you would invite someone to start with, you know, whether that be mindset, physical health, belief systems, any particular thing you'd like people to start with?
I mean, number one is always awareness to me. And when I say awareness, it's for a person to be, one, aware of where it is that they want to go. So, you know, if someone's coming to me, it's because they have a goal. So like, let's really unpack that and like build awareness around what it is you truly want, why you want it, right? Where you want to be. Then from there, let's build awareness on where you currently are. Like, what are your thought processes? What are your habits? What are your, you know, what are all the things that you're doing, thinking, saying that is keeping you where you are? And then once we look at those two places, it's like, you know, just what's getting in the way? Like, what are the things in between and here that we either have to clear out and get rid of, or that we have to, you know, evolve and make more effective and efficient to get that person to whatever that Z is.
Could you give a little bit more detail, like, well, not detail, but just like examples of maybe of what you've seen in a person when unpacking that, like just a little more of a little case study of, you know, of that real quick?
Yeah, for sure. So I had a client that I was working with that literally had 100 pounds that he needed to lose. He was about, when we started, he was about 365.
Oh, wow.
Right. And, you know, young cat who's only like 22 at the time.
Wow.
And I also worked with him though years back when he was a high schooler. Right. So we had some rapport there, but it was one of these things where, you know, he had to lose this weight.
Yeah.
But he was just looking at it from like a numbers perspective. I needed him to like really emotionally know in his own heart, why does he need to lose this weight? So it's just saying like, hey, like, okay, if you stay at this weight, how's your life going to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? And then once we started to really break that down, I mean, a lot of what this person wanted, if we had to boil it down to a word, is confidence. He wanted to be confident in his health, that he's going to be able to live well the next, you know, 50, 60 years. Right? He wanted confidence in the way that he looks so that he could show up and be himself without worrying, is someone judging me by the way that I look? He wanted to be confident on the type of work that he wanted to do in life. So it's one of these things where he had all this weight and he knew he wanted to lose the weight, but what he was really looking for was confidence. Right? Now, mind you, from there, if it's all right, you want confidence, so where are you right now? Where are your insecurities lying? Okay, it's in this part of your life, your relationships, right? Being able to attract and mate. Okay, so when you think about that, what ends up happening? Now we're getting into the habits. Well, this is when I emotionally, like I'll emotionally eat, I'll end up overeating, I might feel stuck and I want to exercise, and I'm feeling kind of depressed. I just want to stay inside. So because you and I, we're, holistic practitioners, we understand, like, all right, if someone's staying inside all the time, they're not getting vitamin D, they're not moving, they're not, we start to see deeper in terms of like, what's the methodologies that we got to put in place. But I can't put any of those methods to work with that person until they really decide like, oh, okay, like, no, I want to be confident. Oh, okay, when I'm not being confident, I'm being insecure. These are all the things that, mess with my life. And then boom, that's how I end up going and becoming 100 pounds overweight. And that's how this cycle continues. So once like he's very clear on what it is, it's like, all right, look, let's start putting in the process of being that person. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's where we start getting into all like, the habits, the tactics, the tools, all that type of stuff.
Love it. Now, I've had this in my own life too, where like, mindset, it seems like is what you're working on him there. Like you're trying to guide him to understand the perspective he's seeing it, where you're trying to guide him to also see where he wants to go. And I've had it many times, and I'm sure everyone can relate to the fact that you're like, you do something, you move your body, you shake it up, you get really psyched up, you feel like that person you want to be, and you get, emotionally charged in that, and you actually feel like a fucking winner for like maybe a day or two, and then holding that is the difficult part. Sometimes, you have to now, like with your friend here, that wants to attract a different mate, you feel good, you feel more confident, you're understanding that, hey, I'm on my process, I care about my health, I'm actually, doing everything I need to do to be the best person I can be, I'm caring, I'm loving, and you're feeling charged up, you're feeling like you're 10, you're 10 out of 10, and then it's like, boom, there's the girl you need to go say what's up to. And then you're like, I feel good, and then you're like, oh, and you get stuck again. And then like, how could we kind of stay in that zone, stay in that pocket of a successful and 10 out of 10 mindset?
I mean, the first thing I would say, it's like, it is mindset. And when we talk about mindset, we're talking about the thinking mind. And when we talk about the thinking mind, 99% of the time, that's us in our ego, right? And I'm not saying, and I'm not one of these people that goes out there and says, hey, the ego's the enemy, the ego's bad. It's simply a tool, and most of us don't know how to use it, right?
All right.
So, even being in this thinking mind, it's like, it's really, we'll get spiritual here if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, it's one of these days where I think it's so important. And I'll just speak for myself. I have to realize that, I'm a spirit having a human experience.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so much deeper than my physical body. I'm so much deeper than my thinking mind that is all based off logic, that has a lot of great inherent power in it, but it's not the end all be all. And we use it against ourselves so often. And I think it's one of these things, like, when we can tap into having a relationship with what it means to be a spiritual being. Like, for me, just understanding, like, my spirit, my soul is so deep. It doesn't have a face. It doesn't have a shake to it. Like, it's not any of that. And when we can start to operate from that place, it really helps us get out of our thinking mind as much and have these attachments on what something should be, how I should show up, what I need to say, how I need to look, right? Or it's not all of these models that we create of like, well, this is what a successful man looks like, or this is my model on what a bad chick really wants in a man, or this is my model of what I should look like as a holistic, health professional, or anything. Like, we hold models for everything. But when we can get back into the soul and just understand that, like, bro, we're connected to the only source, to God, all of that, like, that's what gives me the confidence to just be who I'm being. And then just accepting my humanness. I have days where I feel lazy. And then when I feel lazy, I'm going to want to create all these stories about myself and beat myself up. But if I can kind of take a broader view of that and just realize, like, oh, that's just my humanness, let me step out of it. Like, let me get back to, like, who I really am. Or if I get in a little tiff with my wife and it's like, what am I going to do? Sit here, be stubborn, and be like, no, like, I'm right. Or do I want to just take a step to the side, go give her a hug and be like, okay, like, this is where I'm at. I'm serving this person, as God. You know what I mean? So if we can get past that thinking mind and just get into, like, the spirit, the soul. If someone's religious, pray to whoever you pray to. If you're not religious, but you're quote unquote spiritual and it's the universe and talk to the, whatever it is, go be more of that. And I think that takes care of so many of the problems that we find ourselves in.
Now, are you saying that the thinking mind is what blocks us or like kind of holds us back from staying in the pocket of becoming who we are?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And it's not just the thinking mind, but it's how we're utilizing the thinking mind when the thinking mind is not needed to be utilized.
Ah, I see. Okay. Because I was about to say, sometimes I use my thinking mind to get me into a higher state of being.
I feel that.
Like motivational, just being like, all right, look, we're doing great. I got these things to do. Let's execute the top one. Let's think about how we're going to get that one done, because I know as soon as I finish this one, my momentum's going to go high and my confidence is going to go high. So let's get that ball rolling first. So, like that's an aspect of how I use the thinking mind to get me to where I want to go. But you're also saying that if you use it, it can also bring you back down.
Yeah, like it's a tool, right? It's a powerful tool. It can be used in extremely great ways to get us to take proper action, to move things forward, to be in alignment, to be in integrity with who we are. And there's many a times where people use their thinking mind to stop them from taking action that they know is right. They try to use their thinking mind to justify whatever thing they truly know they shouldn't be doing, that they said they didn't want to be doing. Or like they use their thinking mind to try to create an entire story or model of like how someone is, how a group of people are, or what happened in a situation, instead of actually just communicating with that person or those people to get back on the same page. So I say all that to say it can be used for great things, and it's oftentimes used as stopping us from being the people we want to be.
Wow. Fucking love that. I think, are you familiar with Ganesh?
Not by name.
Ganesh is like
Ganesh.
It's the elephant, the Indian god without a tusk.
Yeah. Okay, I follow
Ganesh. So I think, and don't quote me on this, I think that he's on a mouse, like a rat. And I think it's supposed to symbolize the mind, where Ganesh rides on top of the back of the rat, symbolizing that he uses the mind in his own way, rather than the rat that symbolizes like cheating and scavengery, to utilize him. I think that is, don't quote me on that, but it kind of relates. I love that.
No, for sure. Yeah, I don't know that exact story, but I mean, in the way you said it, it makes all the sense in the world.
Oh, appreciate it. Here we go. I want to start teaching Indian philosophy soon.
Bro, I mean, I've been doing a lot of reading of more Hindu texts, so I don't know if you
bro,
ever
they're
read.
Great.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever read the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, yes.
Extremely powerful story.
Yes.
Or, I don't know, you ever tap into any of Ram Dass's work?
Not Ram Dass. No.
Bro, Ram Dass is, for me, he's a person that, like, really takes a lot of that information and synthesizes it so well, and his story and his whole thing is so interesting. Yeah. And like, man, catching a book of his can be just a powerful teaching and all of that type of stuff.
Dude, I got you. I'd like to do audiobooks, because sometimes, bro, I can't, like, I could read. It's just like, dude, it sometimes gets me, but audiobooks is where I'm at.
Bro, get it.
All right, so I'm going to kind of move into a balancing, because again, with men, there is definitely an imbalance, and I also had an imbalance starting, and now I'm more centered. And it's my belief that our traumas as men, or generally as people, push us to extremes of coping. So for myself, I believe that my traumas push me into more of a pacifist, pushover, overtly weak type of coping, whereas I know family members who their traumas have pushed them into an aggressive fighter, almost like a taker type of coping from, whatever or however the chips may lie. And we want to be more centered, being able to be loving, but at the same time, being able to be aggressive and also be confident and confront emotionally stable, you know? How do you recommend those that are, let's just start with people that are on the far end of aggression that we see. How do we help those men change their perspectives a little bit or help them come back to center? And then we'll go into how empathetic men can kind of come back a little closer to center.
Yeah, that's a great question to ask and a great thing to explore. I would say, I mean, bro, I used to be so angry, bro. Like you could ask,
Really?
hey,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. Like people that see me now, that know me now, they hear that, and it's literally that reaction. But bro, I was that kid where, like, you know, growing up, you know, I always had friends. I was always a good athlete, but like I was also like the fat kid. You know what I'm saying? So like, had a lot of insecurities around that. Would be mad about that, and you know, that had me be very like quick tongue, very witty. Like if someone tried to make a joke about me, like I'm gonna make one right there in the moment, like 3 times harder than the one that you just did, right? And then, you know, as I got older, it would turn into fighting and, you know, just all types of just dumb things. You know, I could be in the club and someone could like step on my shoe and like I'm throwing a fit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, or like, you know, someone could just be looking at me and you know, if I felt like I wanted to try that person, I would just look them in the eye and be like, what the fuck you looking at? Type of deal. So yeah, bro. So I remember, you know, what that's like. And what I would say is like, I mean, I can only speak for myself when it came to being angry. It's like, it's just understanding that the anger for me was just an outward expression of like my own insecurities around myself, you know what I'm saying, that I had about myself. And once I got to a place where for me, I just had to take a step back and see what was I getting mad at, which was my insecurities. And then from there, I just simply took the steps to like really work on them. And it was crazy. Like it really started with my diet, bro. Like the food that I was eating only led to me having more anger. Wow. And then when I changed like a clean, like all grass-fed beef, wild-caught fish, pasture-raised chicken and eggs, you know, the organic fruits and veggies, like, you know, organic, whatever, all that stuff. I first did it because I just wanted to lose a bunch of weight and think I was going to get a bunch of chicks. And not that I had any problems with that at the time, but just, again, thinking mind. And, bro, I did that. I stopped drinking. I wasn't smoking weed. I was just, you know, super clean at that moment. And, bro, like the weight fell off. But even more than that, it literally changed my personality. And, like, instead of being, like, say, super mad all the time, like, I had this sense of, like, calm and groundedness that I was, like, it was my first real experience of that. I had a lot of peace. I didn't feel like I wanted to yell at anybody. I wasn't tired all the time. I wasn't all of these things that were contributing to my anger. And, you know, so I would say for anyone who's on that side that's angry, it's like, one, just take a step back and like really ask yourself, you know, what are you truly angry about? And if you're angry about something that you have no control over, like, please just do your best to let it go. Like literally like surrender it, because you can't do nothing. So if you can't do anything about it, why are you going to, you know, expend your energy into it? However, if on the other side, there is something you can do about it. Like for me, I was insecure about my weight, how I looked. So what did I need to do? I told myself I need to change the way I ate. I did it. And that led to a cascade of things that got me out of that anger. So if you're somebody that's angry about something and that's something you have control over, fucking take the step. Like do the things that you need to do that's going to help you get to that next place or fix whatever that quote unquote problem is. And then if you don't know what to do, go seek out guidance from somebody that you know or that you've heard of that gotten out of that situation. Find a coach that specializes in that type of thing, that's gotten other people themselves out of that situation. If you want to go the therapy route, find a therapist that can help talk you through a lot of that situation, or, you know, go to your mentor, go to your dad, your mom, your whoever, teacher, preacher, all that, whatever it is that you trust and go to for those types of things, and work on it. Because if you're not going to work on it, you're just going to keep getting what you're getting. And if you want to stay there, then it's fine. Just stay there. Don't change anything. But if you want to do something about it, you got the power, like, go after it.
Dude, that's fucking great. And I love that you were in that. I would have never thought that you were the angry guy, bro. I swear.
Oh, bro. I got some of my football teammates in college could tell you some stories that are like, I was ridiculous. I was acting up.
Oh, shit. That's so fucking crazy.
For sure.
Well, you've come a long way, bro. Very balanced. Very balanced.
I appreciate it.
On the other side, this is actually where I came from. I was more on the empathetic, very non-confrontational, too nice, pushover, couldn't speak my mind. What would you kind of say to those men?
I mean, one, I would just say, I mean, if that's what that person wants and they want to stay there, like, keep doing it if that's what you want. If it's not what you want, I mean, bro, a lot of it is the same process that I said for the person that's too angry. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to see what you're doing, realize that it's not what you want to be doing anymore, and either do the things that you know will get you where you want to be, or like find somebody that is going to work with you to help you overcome that thing. Because like at the end of the day, it's like, I'm really not, I'm not in the business of telling people what they should do or how they should be. But what I believe is that every single man can strive to be a dynamic man. And it's just like what we talked about earlier. It's being great at your career, your health, and your relationships. So like right now we're talking on like the health part, if say, or even the relationship part, but say you're being too docile, you're being a pushover and you don't like it. Well, hey, that's probably pretty tough on your emotional health. It's probably tough on your social health. It's probably tough on your mental health. So then it's like, okay, what are you willing to do as a person to change that? And sometimes people got to work with somebody to just help them get past their stories that they make up about themselves that are just absolutely not true. To your point, there might be something that a person went through, you know, I think the word you use is trauma. And it's like, if that person went through this trauma at, 10 years old, and now they hold that whatever story they said about themselves because of that, like what that made them, and now they're still that 20 years later, you're only that because you're believing that you're that. You know what I mean? And when we say things in our head, it's really easy to believe them. Trust me. Like, I know it's like we can bullshit ourselves better than anybody. But sometimes something as easy as speaking about it out loud to somebody else and actually hearing it come out of your mouth and you hear it in your ears versus just hearing it in your head completely shifts the way someone looks at it. They could be like, oh, no, wait, like that's kind of silly. No, I don't believe that. I don't know why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
And just help people get to their truth.
And, a tougher one that I've noticed too, because you did say, the thoughts. I've also had it where it's beyond thought. It's a fucking feeling of inability to confront situations or inability to speak up. And that's something that I really felt like, literally, like how I said earlier, like my throat, like couldn't speak up for myself. And it really, it wasn't a thought for me. It was more of like inconceivable feeling of like, don't say anything, just go and retreat. And I would freeze a lot, actually.
Yeah.
So to men that struggle with that, and just people in general, not just men, because everyone kind of is potentially on either side of the spectrum. I started to literally, little by little, like, just like, if it was true, I'd kind of just speak up and just be like, hey, yeah. And then just like, I could feel my heartbeat, my like face would get flushed. Like, man, I can't believe I just said something. And then like little by little by little. And then as soon as you take little conscious steps, I started to do unconscious speaking. So if something would come up, I wouldn't let my brain think about like, hey, should I practice my communication of speaking up? Like, I'd just be like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or no. Like, I jump into the no, because typically when you're too far on the empathetic side, your no is the hardest one to guard,
For sure.
Having that shield.
Absolutely.
So, and I've been through it. So it's awesome to come on the other side, because you just own yourself so much more. You own your life so much more, and you feel like you're have you seen the like memes that are like he's the main character, like,
oh, like, yeah, of course. I love those.
You feel like you're the main character of your story, as you fucking should be, because sometimes the main character is your thoughts of just in some astrological space thinking of other things and other people.
Absolutely, man. I mean, that's so real. I mean, you're speaking so deeply into this whole idea of like the thought feeling loop, right? Where, in the way that you were explaining it, you had these feelings that would
Yeah.
come up, and you would viscerally feel it in your throat, right? So it's literally a
Yeah.
physical manifestation
Yeah.
of the thoughts that you were having at some point, right?
Yes.
And
Ah, yes.
now these feelings so that you have also now start to create more of the thought. You know what I mean? So now the feelings
Ah.
causing the thought continues to, impact the feeling, and it keeps going in this loop. And
Yeah. Yeah.
typically that turns into specific actions or inactions that we
Yes. And then so neurons that fire together wire together.
Amen.
And that's something that I've also taken very seriously because sometimes I've also learned to freeze, fight, flight, freeze. I've been I've been more of a freezer, to be honest.
Yeah.
So even to this day, when something like scares me or something kind of bad happens, I tend to kind of like freeze. And I've been actively, like consciously being like, just move around, bro. Like, don't freeze, don't freeze.
Nice.
Breathe. Like consciously, like, hey, don't start firing those neurons together just so I can get myself out of it. So if anybody's struggling with that on your own, I went completely, like, I'm fucking kind of psycho about it because the last thing I want to do is hold myself back like I was for so many fucking years, not owning my life. So
Amen.
just a tip out there. Move if you're freezing. Speak up if you can't.
Yeah. And I think something that helps with a lot of these, like, things that are wired into our DNA is what I like to say. Like, man, there's so many ways that we act and we show up that's just literally in our nature. It's in our DNA. So you talk about, how you freeze and how we have this fight, flight, or freeze within us. Like, we used to do that because it used to save our lives. Like, back to our prehistoric, like, ancestors, like, if they're walking around and there's some, rustling in the bushes, they weren't going to sit there and try to think their way through, like, I wonder if there's a saber-toothed tiger in there or is the wind just blowing? They're not doing that. Like, they're just running, right? They're just running, or they're freaking getting their spears out, ready to fight. Like, that stuff used to save our lives back then. And now, mind you, now you go generation after generation after generation after generation into the future until you come into our incarnation. Like, bro, that stuff is already wired in our nervous system and we still use it, right? But the thing is, the things that are the saber-toothed tiger now are just these different everyday life things, whether it's, for some of my clients, it's getting an email, right? It's our phone vibrate. We have a text. We automatically get into like this, oh no, is there like an emergency? Or we might get a text or an email from a certain person, and we associate that person with this type of bad event that could happen. And like our body starts to just feel the whole thing. And it happens without us even thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, because of that, something I try to help my clients with, and for anyone listening, just understand that you're built that way. It's not necessarily your fault. It's not necessarily a bad thing or good thing. It is what it is. But now with that information, can you now separate yourself from maybe the action that you take that you don't want to be taking anymore? So it's just like you said, you have a pattern interrupt of knowing when you freeze, you're going to move in some type of way to interrupt that pattern, to get new firing. But for all of us, we have some type of default firing that we've developed over the years that's been handed down to us through our, just our generations of ancestry over time. But now that we have that information, we know that that's a thing. Can we be aware enough to when whatever thing triggers us and you're in that mode, can you catch yourself and be like, okay, I'm in this mode and let me decide to do something different? That's where the thinking brain's really good. Where you're making, hey, I'm going to do a conscious decision to do this other thing. All right, this person said something I didn't like. I'm going to take 3 breaths and then do something. Or I got this email. I see my mind's racing about what it's going to mean. Let me take a deep breath and actually just read the email and see what it is, not have these attachments that we typically have. So, yeah, just realizing that that's a thing and doing your best to interrupt the pattern, notice it when it comes on, and then deciding to take a different action can just completely transform the way those types of situations impact us.
Cool. Love it. I want to share something that I found a little controversial, potentially. I don't think men should show weakness or emotion, only in the face of others that can support him or other men, I feel like that should be the only place men should be open and vulnerable. I don't believe men should be openly emotional and openly weak, especially in front of people that they support and protect, nor in situations that require their focus, attention, and action. Is that something you may or may not agree with?
Well, first I would have to ask you, one, how do you define emotional, and how do you define weakness?
Weakness being the inability to act, the inability to have one's mind's focus. So a panic, like a freaking out of sorts in a situation where you potentially have your family with you, or a situation where there's people that you're responsible for, let's say you're a business owner, to show emotion or weakness during a tough time, especially when they're looking up to you as a person that you lead or you depend on, because every employee is dependent on their business owner. So I find it that, I think in the past, the idea was like, men don't show weakness because we've seen it. If a guy in war fucking starts crying and loses their fucking mind, we all die, no one gets food, and we have trouble. And it carried on to like, hey, even around people that you're chilling with, that you trust, just don't show it. It's probably a bad idea. I think that's where the idea evolved to. Do you agree with that? No? Or?
Oh, I would say, to what you're saying, what comes up for me is like, there's a time and a place for things, right? So,
yeah,
there'd be, to your point, it's like, yeah, it may not be just open and vulnerable. And when I say open and vulnerable, it's like, okay, I might be talking about, like, literally, simply answering a question can be seen as being open and vulnerable, depending on who you're answering that question to, if that makes sense, right?
Interesting.
So like what I consider to be open and vulnerable, it's like, I can tell you how it is. I can tell you what's going on if I feel like you're worth having that conversation with. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just going to open up to someone random about it. Or there might be certain things that I'll talk about online that maybe I wouldn't talk about, or that I would talk about online. No, what am I trying to say here? That if I'm going to talk about it online, that means that I'm open to having that conversation to anybody finding the information, versus there might be a conversation that I have with my wife that would be only between her and I. So I think that's a time and a place. And then even with the emotions, I guess it just depends how you're defining it, how you're looking at it, because you went on the weakness side. And I guess it just depends on like, how do you decipher like someone's being emotional? Is it like they're not composed, they're not keeping their cool, or maybe they're, I don't know, are they crying? I guess I need more clarity on like, what's the emotional side like mean, or how you would define it.
I guess it would be decomposed.
Okay. Yeah, I would rock with that. Like, yeah, I don't think it's effective to not have your composure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think anyone's ever lost their composure, and then like a person watching it was like, yeah, I agree. Like, that's what he should have done. Like, good. Way to not keep, like, I've never heard someone say, like, way to not keep your composure. You know what I mean? So, like, I feel you on that. Composure is key. But I think
just because, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Just because I've seen it, and if it has ruined the trust of many people, and I've seen it in my own life too, when you have someone that, A, you're dependent on, B, a leader that wants that respect and loses the ability to compose themselves in the most troubling of times, where that actually needs to be the reverse. They need to be the strongest in that moment of time, where I, even for myself, in front of certain family members that look up to me, I would actually suppress fear and losing my composure or anything like that, and deal with that later with, whatever type of, emotional release I need to do. So that way they could feel a little bit more safer and trust in my guidance at that time, and look at me as someone that they could depend on. Because we all, especially younger people, I have 4 brothers, they all need someone they could look up to and be like, all right, I'm good. If he's good, I'm good.
I feel that. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing. And yeah, it's just so interesting because I feel like just the word emotional. I mean, how many different emotions are there? And then I think it's not necessarily is someone being emotional, but it's like, what are the actions or inactions is that person taking that's having you coin them as emotional? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's hard for me to just think of the emotion itself and be like, all right, someone shouldn't be fearful in front of somebody. But that means that I'm showing fear, right? But to your point, it's like,
showing,
it's like you're showing fear, where in reality, I can be fearful on the inside, but I have a stoic face. I'm not cowering, I'm not whatever in that moment. So I might not look fearful, right? But I have fear. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I think it's just, how does one be? I'm saying like it's such a deep idea where I would just need to really know like specific events. If you're like, hey, do you think it's ineffective if a man gets news that, one of his kids is getting cancer in front of the whole family, and it's bad that he cries when he hears that news, right? Versus, okay, is it better if that person doesn't cry because it's going to allow his family to be strong, or he's going to be able to be strong in front of his family members who are crying because they are the kids, they are the wife, they are, all these things going on, and they got to, hold it down for the family. So I just feel like it depends on the situation and how we're really putting it together.
That's a good one. I like that one. And I would say yes. I would say that at that moment in time, it's up to the leader to set aside their emotions, to be the rock for others. And typically it's the man who goes into that role. And then I think at the same time, there needs to be an open space, a tribe, a circle of men where you could let that shit go, let it out therapeutically.
Yeah, I'm in alignment with that.
Okay, sweet. Just want to know. I have a lot of crazy thoughts, and I wanted to check this one with you since you are very much so on the same wavelength here.
Absolutely, I'm all for it.
Hell yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the speed walking and the speed walking journey.
Come on.
Talk to us about the speed walking journey.
I mean, the first thing I always say in damn near all of these videos is, there'll be times in your speed walking journey when you realize that speed walking is a lot like life. And what I mean by that is like, I just use speed walking as a metaphor for life, right? Like I first started actually speed walking during the pandemic because, gyms were closed. All we had was sidewalks. So, I was just getting it in over there. And one day, me and my wife, my fiance at the time, we're just walking around, and we just started walking fast. And then as I'm walking fast, I was like, hey, babe, like record me walking fast right now. You know what I'm saying? And then it kind of just grew out of that. Nice. And, if you fast forward, damn near, 3 years later, I mean, the way I look at speed walking is that it's a great vehicle for two things. One, if as long as you have legs, your legs are working, like anyone could speed walk. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're walking, you can walk a little bit faster. So it's something that's just like inclusive where damn near everyone can do it and get something out of it. And then two, like, bro, I just use it as a vehicle to just talk about life shit. You know what I'm saying? Like now I just pair every speed walking metaphor to something about, my beliefs around life. And I just share it while I'm walking fast. And I understand it's going to get more eyes on it because, I'm 6'1", 240 pounds, big ass black dude. Usually I got some, my shorts are short, my fanny pack is on, I might got some muscles out, I might be covered up, who knows? But like, I understand it looks funny. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's going to get eyes on it. And it allows me to actually put out these messages that always come from the heart that I truly believe in.
Oh, I fucking love it, dude. I love every single one. They're always funny. I'm always wondering like, cause you got some good puns, like lean into it, or like,
you already know.
Yeah, they're good, dude. I love it.
You already know. So yeah, I love it. It's a great vehicle.
Oh, I love those, man. So I kind of want to end it on, your slogan, "You can too." You got the nice neon sign there, "You can too." Can you explain to us and everybody that's listening what that means to you, because you really ran with that idea there.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, honestly, to me, you can too is a state of mind. And it's really this idea that, like, if I see anyone out there doing something great that's really inspiring to me, if that person can do it, if he or she can do it, you can too. So I think one of the problems I used to see all the time is like people could be doing great things and a person will want to hate on them, will be jealous, envious. So they want to talk shit and do whatever. And to me, it's like, you know, instead of hating on that person, let that be inspiration and proof that, you know, whatever big dream I have or thing that I'm doing is also attainable. I can also go do that thing. So like for me, a lot of my journey coming up in terms of changing the way I eat, changing the way I train, changing my mindset, changing, you know, my spirit, my relationship with myself, my relationship with others, just everything, you know, anything you see me doing, like, bro, ain't nothing. I'm as regular as could be. I'm as human being is out there. And it's like, bro, if I'm out there doing it, you can too. Like I was eating a fire ass diet with no bread. I was making like $22 an hour or whatever at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like I was making it happen. Or like even now, I have a lot of great things on my plate. My time is occupied. Yet because training is important to me, I make time for it. You know what I'm saying? I make time for my family. I make time for my business, my health, all these things. And that's what makes me, you know, now what I call a dynamic man. But you can too, man. It's really a mentality. And it really started, and I write about this in my book, but the way that the name even came about, I named my business YouCan2. And this is it, I want to say August of like 2013, where I used to ask like my mom, like, hey mom, like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And she'd be like, I can't, I'm too tired. I can't, or I'm not healthy enough. I can't. And she would always say that she couldn't do something. And because that she used to always say that she can't, that's why I first came up with this name, like, you can too. Because I used to always hear my mom say that she couldn't. And it was crazy, man, when she first passed away and, you know, all the people that I helped after that, you know, talk about all these people, I've helped them lose hundreds of pounds, or I helped them get to the next level in athletics, whether it's going from high school to college to pros, being a pro that's on the bench to being a starter, or whatever it is. I would do all these things. And I used to tell myself, like, you know what, it doesn't matter because I couldn't help my mom do those things, right? And, you know, it wasn't until I had, you know, it was actually my first ayahuasca ceremony where, you know, I was literally sitting on my, you know, my little mat, like cuddled up with like my pillow and blanket. And after some time, like I literally transported back to my mom's womb. I was like back in the womb again. And then once I got to the womb, it's like all these memories just flooded of like all the amazing, you know, moments my mom and I had from when I was just a little kid, you know, all the way through adulthood, just all the ways that she was there for me, how she was always like a being, you know, about serving others, helping others. And because I realized like all the great things that she helped me with, like I could never be who I was or, you know, play the sports that I did, go to the college that I did, go to Georgetown, graduate, do all these things if she wasn't who she was for me. And then once I had that moment, it really transformed the way I looked at YouCan2. And I even looked at it, instead of it being this place of, hey, I couldn't help my mom, so it doesn't matter who else I help. I realized I get my love of service and wanted to help people from my mom. The only difference is I realized I got to fill up my cup first. And that's why I do all these things for my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health, so that I can go out there and be really effective in, you know, helping those people that I serve. So that's really like the origin of how, you know, the whole YouCan2 name came about, how I used to look at it, how I look at it now. And it's just their point at you, letting you know, like, hey, bro, like that's the finger of belief, point at you, letting you know, like, also you, bro, you can too. Like,
oh, dude, fucking love it. Well, Alvey Daniel Thompson Jr., dude, you're a fucking beast, bro. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Thanks for sharing the wisdom. I think you really grounded it for a lot of people, you know, not seeing you as like a guy that's different or came up different, but a person that can tell you that you can too, man. I really appreciate you coming on, man.
Oh, man, thank you so much. I appreciate those words. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you for having this platform and, being able to, put this type of work out there and let people know that there's so many ways that they're not alone, and that, other people have really overcame the same things that they might be going through. So I appreciate everything you're doing. Keep doing it. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep speaking up for yourself. Keep doing the things that are bringing you closer to where you want to be, brother. You're a special dude.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Where can people see you at? Where can they kind of connect with you if they want some coaching or something?
No, absolutely. So you can go to Mr.YouCan2. That's YOUCAN, the number 2.com. And, you can always connect with me there. You can find me on Instagram at Mr.YouCan2. And yeah, shoot me a DM, holla at me. You know what I'm saying? I'm always open to have conversations with people and help do the thing.
Hell yeah. All right, bro. I'll catch you on the next one, man. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, brother.